So we now have the model done, it's UV'd, we've got the textures done, and we've started working on the basic shaders for the skin. We've also added in the eyes and also some of her clothing. Now the last element that we're going to look at is quite an important one, and that's the hair. And this also includes the eyebrows and the eyelashes. Now obviously she already has eyebrows in and they're just through the texture. And like I said in the previous video, I may end up keeping those because they've worked out quite well. But I am going to show you how to create your own eyebrows using xGen. So let's just close that down because we don't need that viewport just for now. So we have our model. And what we need to do is add xGen descriptions onto it. Now I'm not going to use the traditional xGen, which if you've used xGen before, you open up this window, you create a new description, and you sort of do it that way. What I want to do with this video instead is show you how to use the interactive grooming tools. And I find these to be a lot more intuitive, they're easier to work with, and they give you really nice results. So let's just close that down. So the window's already open here, but I'm still going to just talk you through it. Now when creating a description, which sort of is an area or an element of hair or fur, you can do this one of two ways. So let's say we wanted to do the eyelashes. We could come in and just select the geometry around here, increase that, and then go in and create the description using the selected polygons. You know, we could do the same for the hair. We could just select the geometry up here and then attach a description to it that way. So that's one way of doing it. But what I'm going to do instead, and I've already done this, so let's just hide that for now. You can hide that floor as well. What I've done is I've gone in and all I've done is just selected the polygons and then deleted everything else. So I've just got the eyelashes, the eyebrows, and then the scalp, which is where the hair is going to come from. Now the reason I prefer to do it this way is it means we've got a little bit more control over where the hair and the fur starts and how it is formed. And I'll go over this a little bit more as we get into it. But for the scalp, for example, if I bring back the character model, so we can't see the scalp geometry, and as you can just see around the edge here, what I've done is I've actually shrunk the scalp slightly, and that just means that when the hair is being generated, it's going to sit properly inside the head and not outside it. So it just means that you've got a little bit more depth and it just fits a bit nicer. Now you wouldn't be able to do that if you were selecting the actual faces of the head. So let's hide them again. So let's start with the eyelashes. So all I'm going to do is I am going to go to Generate, Create Interactive Groom Splines. Just open the options there. Let's just reset those settings. So let's give it a name. We'll call it Eyelashes, surprisingly. And I'm going to leave density at 10 and leave length at 1. And I'm going to reduce the CV count to 4. So what the CV count does is with each curve that's generated, it's going to add 4 CVs in there. And this just gives you a bit more flexibility and how you want it to bend. Now for eyelashes, 4 is the minimum that you can set. And for things like eyelashes and short hair, 4 is more than enough. But when you come to create longer hair later on, you will want to increase this CV count, which just gives you a bit more, it just allows the hair to bend and flow more. So I'm just going to click apply, close that down. And as you can see, we've just got some very basic hairs represented there. I'm just going to get rid of these for now, just hide them so we can just concentrate on the eyelashes. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to go up to the workspace and change this to xGen Interactive Groom. And as you can see, that's just changed everything. Let's go back to our perspective view. So it's opened up the Interactive Groom editor. I know it was open before, but it's also attached the attribute editor and the tool settings down below as well. So what we can do now is we can select the eyelashes up here, and you can control the actual width. So we could maybe halve them just to make them a little bit thinner. We can also adjust how much they taper. If I zoom in, we set that to 1, and that's going to taper from the beginning right to the end. You can also adjust where the taper starts from. So if we wanted it to start closer to the edge, closer to the end, sorry, we could set it like that. So as you can see, the taper is just going to start here. For now though, let's just leave it at 0. And they're just the basic settings. Now we can go down to the eyelash base node down here, and here is where we can adjust the density. Now we did set it when we created it initially, but here you can actually increase it. So if, for example, we set that to 10, as you can see, it fills out the eyelashes a lot more. So what I might do is I might just set it to, let's just double it. Maybe, actually let's set it to 4, just to give us a little bit more to play with. So we now have these in here, but they don't look like real eyelashes yet. So what we need to do is we need to start to style them. But what you do to style them is, again, in the editor up here, we have this sculpt node, and we have this sculpt layer. Now you need to make sure when you're working on this particular, because we're working on the eyelash description, but as we build all the descriptions up, there's going to be a lot more in here. So you have to make sure you're sculpting on the correct layer. And to do that, just make sure edit is set to red. And obviously you can add more sculpt layers in there if you want to do different tweaks and things, and you can adjust the amount that it affects it with the slider here. But for us, we're just going to use this one sculpt layer. You also have this xGen shelf up here as well, and we have lots of different tools that we can use. So what we're going to use first is the actual comb tool. So I'm going to select that. What I'm also going to do is go down to tool settings, and I'm going to go to symmetry settings and set that to object X. And what that's going to do is, obviously, as we paint on this the eyelashes here, it's going to do the same over here. Now, depending on the geometry, you may end up with slightly different results, but it gives you the basics. Just going to set that to, no, that's no better. Let's change the background color so you can see things a little bit clearer. So I'm just going to hold down B, and then I'm just going to drag with my left mouse button just to adjust the size. And then all we do is you literally go in and you just comb like so. And what I like about the comb brush is you get this nice bend here from the actual follicles to the end. You get a nice bend, and this is all we're going to do. We're just going to get a very basic pose for these lower eyelashes. And obviously I'm just doing this very quickly for the purposes of this tutorial, but you can spend a bit more time refining these shapes. So I'll just pull this out like so. And obviously we can adjust the size and the strength over here too. So that's roughly okay. I'm going to increase the size slightly now as I go to work on the upper eyelash. And obviously these aren't the correct length, but once we've got the basic shape in place, we can adjust the length later on. Like I say, using the comb brush, you get the nice curl, just as eyelashes, well, just as you do with eyelashes. So that's looking better. Let's just fix these bits over here. And again, if I wanted to remove that, I could just change that slider down. So you can just add or apply different sculpting layers to get different effects, and then you can edit it that way. So those are looking okay. As you can see, the ones on this side do look slightly different, so we'll need to go in and edit those again. In fact, I'm going to turn off symmetry because we are getting, well, let's leave it back on just for now, just while I'm going to go in and edit the length. So like I said, the lower eyelid eyelashes need to be shorter than the upper ones. So I'm just going to go up here to the length tool. I'm going to increase the size. I'm going to reduce the strength just so it doesn't, the eyelashes don't shoot out. Then I'm just going to gently nudge these. Just undo that because I didn't want to catch those lower eyelashes. Now they're looking a little odd because they look a bit more like spider legs at the moment, but what we can then do is we can use the smooth tool, scale that up, and then just use that to fix some of those variations in the length. And then use the comb tool again just to fix some of these. Now these eyelashes do look quite long, so you may not want them as long as this. But what you got to think as well is what sort of shader you're going to be using. Now you see we had symmetry on, but it's not affected this side. But I think, as we can see, the geometry is slightly different on this side to this side, so that's why it's worked out a little differently. So I'm just going to ignore that one for now. That's probably a good tip. If you want to use symmetry, make sure the geometry is the same on both sides. And it's worked out different because for this particular character and her pose, I had to adjust the eyes because of the way that the eyeballs were facing. So that's why the geometry is different. So there, we can just use the comb tool. But then we may want to just use the grab tool, which is there. And this allows you to literally just grab them and pull them around. But the difference with this is if I grab them and pull them like so, you see we lose that nice curl here. So that's why I use the comb tool first. So that is just a quick way of adding in the eyelashes. Now I think the lower eyelashes probably need to be lengthened as well. So let's just go in and maybe not that much. Turn down the strength, just so we can nudge them a little bit. Now I always try to make them a little longer than I need them, and that's because when we come to setting up the shaders and the rendering, we're going to add an opacity ramp, and what that means is they will fade out towards the tips, so you will lose some of the length when it comes to rendering. So it's always worth creating them a little longer than you need. So we'll just smooth those out, but smoothing them has now lost that curl, so we can use a comb tool to go in and adjust them like so. But obviously it needs a lot more tweaking and adjusting, and I'm just trying to get across the main process. So I'll leave that there for you to adjust and play around and tweak a little bit more. So we've got, let's say we've got the eyelashes done. We've got the description up here. So let's bring back the eyebrow geometry. And it's exactly the same process. I'm going to select the brows like so. Got selection highlighting turned off, that's why they weren't visible. So select the eyebrows, and then we go back to generate, create interactive groom splines, open this up, and we'll call those eyebrows. And we can probably get away with just using the same settings. So create, and again we've ended up with just the eyebrows pointing out, well, the eyebrow hairs pointing out. So let's open this up. So you see we've got this sculpt layer here, but the eyelashes one is the one that's still active. So I'm just going to change that now, so that I know that when we're sculpting, we're just going to be sculpting on the eyebrows. So just as we did before, let's maybe make them a little bit thinner. And I'm going to add a taper to them as well. So they may be a bit too short, but let's pose them first and then we can see how they work out. I'm not going to adjust the density just yet because they look okay so far, and once we've posed them, we can increase the density there. Also with the eyelashes as well, we need to increase that density, but we'll do that before we render. So we're just going to do the same process. We're going to use the comb tool, and let's try symmetry again. And obviously we've got the tolerance attribute down here as well, so if it's not completely matching up, we can adjust this. But these models look like they might be a little bit better. If you're not sure, just work on one side and then work on the other one separately. So let's just use a comb tool. So I'm just going to quickly pose these. And again, if you're not sure about how the hairs of the eyebrows fall, just use some reference. Just use a nice photo to help guide you. So we want them to come up, curl over this way. And then curl down here. So that's looking okay so far. But yeah, they're a little bit too short, so we can go to the length tool again. And let's just gently apply that. So they're a little bit longer towards the middle here. So they're quite bushy eyebrows, but you know, the tools are so easy to use. We could just go in and we can just comb them, just to pose them. That's better. Just adding that bit of length. Then over here. And again, the symmetry's not really worked, so you see the length has worked on this side but not on this side. So I'm going to have to go in and rework that one separately. So let's just turn symmetry off. So that's looking okay so far. What we can also do is, as the eyebrows get towards the sort of the outer brow area, you may want there to not be as much hair. So we can use the density brush, which is, where is it? That's it, the density tool. And we can set that to decrease. And we can go in and paint here, and that will remove some of those hairs. So that's just a quick overview of how to create the eyelash and the eyebrow. So let's go back to the eyelash base for now. And I'm going to increase that density to 10, just to fill those out. And like I said, the symmetry tool didn't really work for these particular models, so I'm going to have to go in and I'm going to have to fix the left eyebrow and the left eyelashes. But before I go in and do that, I'm going to leave this particular video here, but what I'm going to do is just going to pick it straight up straight after, and we can start to look at adding in the hair.